Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here on this Friday, this pre-weekend get together when we get to consider a book. And I pulled out Upstream, even though we've had a similar Dan and I think it's Dan and Chip Heath did another one that we looked at, but I just thought this one was fascinating. And I would like to invite you, I don't want to spoil it, I'd like to invite you to get the book and hear or read the introduction about the guys that are on the bank fishing and kids come floating down the stream drowning. There's a whole story about what happens in that circumstance. So it's a great little story. Maybe that'll be an incentive to go out and read the book. Our resources, if you're new to ChatGPT, you can get a free version by going to chat.openai.com and you can go ahead and read what's here. And my two co-hosts today, Laura is on a well-deserved vacation, and Lori is sitting in for Laura today to be one of our two co-hosts. And of course, Rachel has been with us from the beginning to help put these presentations out to you guys and make sure you're in breakout rooms if we decide to do breakout rooms or just provide general assistance to keep things running along. Thank you to both of you for being here with us. They have likely put a file in your Zoom chat window, and that is the file that will show these slides in a PDF format, all with clickable links. And of course, why are we getting together? AI is just coming on gangbusters. It's everywhere you read. I'm getting multiple emails from different people that are promoting either them doing training for AI or they're saying, oh, our company is moving to AI. Some very big companies have come out and talked about that their workforce is going to be decreasing due to AI. And one of these times, I'm going to have us go do a prompt and say, how is AI going to impact my future with the job I have? And of course, it's all speculation at this point, but it might be good to be thinking about that. How is it going to impact us? So, yes, it can be extremely valuable on so many levels, either personally with our team or with our clients. But when I say using it and using it in the useful ways, that's terrific. But also, you might want to be thinking about how it's going to impact your future. And I haven't talked about that very much in most of these workshops that we get together, but a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are they're really talking about this, what's going to be happening over the next couple years. And 2 years is not very long. We all know how fast they fly by. Of course, we're recording. Your recordings will be available as soon as I can get them out, as soon as Laura gets back and does her editing and puts them on the web page. And then after that, it's over in my court to get a notice out to you. They will be available for you. We will close the doors to the workshop when we first start sharing the prompts to download, usually 10 to 12 minutes after we start. That prevents interruptions for on-time participants. And of course, just kind of watch out for confidential information. There's one thing I'm going to mention on the side here, actually, two things. First of all, there are some settings that you should be aware of and think about the implications before you turn them on. One of the things you can turn on in ChatGPT is say, oh, you can have access to my OneDrive, okay, which would be the big place where we keep all sorts of information. If you're in Office 365, you can have access to my Google Drive, which is where a lot of people keep a lot of other information. I'm trying to remember where the third place is, but it's another, oh, maybe a Dropbox. If you turn that on, that means you're opening up everything. Part of me would love it to be able to do it because right now, if I want to submit a file over to ChatGPT, I have to go put it on my C drive, take it out of our OneDrive, put it on my C drive, and then transfer it over to ChatGPT. That's an extra step I have to take. When we started thinking about it, we went, yeah, that's okay. Take another minute and move the file over because then, of course, you know exactly what you're giving ChatGPT access to. And I can't speak to the other AI packages But this is just going to become pervasive to my way of thinking. And there are a lot of legal cases going on right now where even if we say that something is getting deleted, for legal purposes, it's not getting deleted. So you got to think about some of these things because they're changing very quickly. The second thing I'm going to bring up is that I think Lori is going to put a link. Normally, I don't do security stuff, but there's a link to a Forbes article that says something like 3.5 billion, now that's billion records have been hacked. So you're going to want to go out. We're on a big push right now to start changing almost every password for everything that we have everywhere. So start out with any password manager that you have. That's the first place I started. Second place I went to was MS Office and changed that password. And then I went through all bank accounts, all financial accounts. And if you have access to your clients' financials, you're probably going to want to be talking to them about time to change all of their passwords. And it is really a pain. But like my password manager, I realized I got a whole bunch of old stuff out there. So this will be a good excuse for me to clean that out, but to update all sorts of passwords. Because if you've paid a company for something, then there's financial information out there. So that's my big warning. And Lori apprised me of that last night. I hadn't stayed on top of that particular piece of news, but it's pretty urgent. They're saying get your passwords changed ASAP. And most of you, I'm sure, know they're putting pretty big restrictions on how long a password has to be and what are all the different things that have to be in that password. So most of the places where I changed it last night, they were requiring anywhere from 11 to 15 characters. Most of them are pretty good, but if you find somebody that's letting you get in there with just a few letters or numbers, do it yourself. Make it a nice long complex password. So there's our big warning for today. Don't normally do that, but this all seemed urgent enough to share with you guys. Breakout sessions. I don't know if we'll have breakout sessions today or not. Rachel says no. So this is good. We'll be able to share. And if we have time, I'll even share what I came up with, kind of a pretend individual and problem. I think everybody here has heard my background about how I got involved with AI, and I just keep using it more every day. Now, I'm not using it every second of every day, but I'll tell you what, a good chunk of my day, I flip over as soon as I have a question. I end up moving over into ChatGPT. Once in a while, I'll go Google something. If, for instance, my new addition to my family, my new canine addition to my family came with some medications. And so I did Google what's that medication and what's it used for, because I didn't need a nice long explanation from ChatGPT. But generally speaking, I'm going to ChatGPT to do that. So that just happened to be a personal one. Generally, we want to use it for business, but there are personal things that it can be helpful for. Again, I'm a part of the Simple group, and they have all sorts of extra training, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that if you just reach out to me, and I've given you my Calendly address. Anybody want to add in how they're currently using AI? I'm going to call
Pick
on
on
Rachel. Rachel, how are you using AI? I never let you talk.
Honestly, I was about to say, okay, now we have to do a bunch of password changes. What is the best strategy to do that?
That'd be a good thing to ask AI. Exactly. And I'm sure there is a strategy. We came up with our own, take care of those bank accounts first. But again, if you've got clients, I would think that'd be a really big thing that you'd be talking to
And,
them
and
about.
I'm thinking
So,
also those that are interconnected. I'm thinking like QuickBooks. You probably want to do the bank accounts before you do QuickBooks because you have to update all the QuickBooks stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it might give you, ChatGPT might give you a nice order of and things to think about. Remember, in our tips, we're going to go back to those tips, ask it questions. What am I forgetting? Am I missing
Mhm.
something?
and the breach has been announced at 16 billion. Apple, Facebook, Google, and other
Oh, up
passwords
to
have been
six.
leaked. 16 billion.
Oh
And
my
it's the
gosh.
Apple platform, Facebook, Google. You think about Google Docs, Google Drive, Gmail, all of those things that we're all embedded in.
I'm thinking the Chrome and all that, they save
Right,
passwords.
right, exactly. Oh,
Well, we set up an internal policy that said you're not supposed to save passwords there. We use the password
Mhm.
manager. We use RoboForm. And we had a RoboForm everywhere, and then we shifted to RoboForm for business. And it's one of the few password managers that I've heard about that hasn't had a breach. So we're keeping our
Mhm.
fingers crossed because sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just want to save those passwords in a password manager as opposed to saving them in Chrome. And we had a company wide push to go through and look through all of our Chrome and anywhere else where we might have said, oh, just remember this password, which is
Mhm.
nice and convenient. But no, from here on out in our company, everything is supposed to go through our password manager. More security stuff, but the topic of the day. Let's go ahead and move on. Today's workshop, we're going to go ahead and you can download and save this PDF slide deck, which is probably already there. And then, of course, we're going to give you this prompt and we're going to ask ChatGPT to help us apply ideas from today's book. This is all about those things that kind of recur. We always have to deal with one-time problems. Today, the one-time problem is passwords. You might even apply some of the stuff from today's prompt to the password side. But the whole idea is to figure out what kinds of things happen over and over again. So, computer problems, client wrinkles, maybe delays in getting paid for client work, maybe software issues or inefficient meetings, all sorts of things that can come up. And we call these piranha in our company. To me, it's there's those little things that are nibbling at you all day long and distracting you from the bigger important things. And if they're recurring, this book is going to give you some really good ideas about how to move your way back. I once saw a video where it called it a problem chain, and it showed a whole bunch of people walking along. They had chains around their ankle, and they were all tied together. And sometimes you only see one of those people or items in the chain, but in fact, there's a whole chain of things that creates that problem chain, and you need to get to the underlying root. So keep your prompts so you can use them again. And then go ahead and download and copy today's prompt. I'll just take a moment to look at it. And I sat through one of the simple classes yesterday and picked up some new tips about the prompts. So there are a couple things in here, like see where it says ask, and then this stop and wait, and then finish. There's an ask up here, just ways to make things a little clearer to ChatGPT. We're not really doing programming per se, but we're learning how to talk more effectively with ChatGPT. So I tried to pick up some of the things that I was exposed to put in here. And the other thing is that in here, I've asked it to prepare a list of how you could begin shifting your perspective towards preventing a specific problem that you'll be sharing. So be thinking about what's that problem that you want to have ChatGPT help you with. And um, afterwards, I said, is there anything, are there any concerns about implementing these suggestions? And so in my results, I'll share with you if we have time, I'll share with you my concern and then how it responded. Within every solution, here's another little insight that I have learned over the years. Within every solution is buried a problem, another problem. So it goes along with that problem chain. What can sometimes seem like a solution quite often has its own issues buried in it. So that's a good thing to ask ChatGPT about as well. That's our prompt for today. And if everybody has that, I'm going to go back over here and I'll go ahead and start our timer. And we took a little extra time talking on the front end, but we have a small group today, so that's going to work out just fine. We'll still all be able to share. I started the timer. I'll go ahead and mute myself and turn my camera off, and we'll be back in 12 minutes. So we try to talk quietly when we say that the time is up so we don't startle anybody. And part of the reason we've got a smaller group today, and of course, had I been thinking, Rachel and I should have thought about scaling new heights and we might have skipped this week, but it's going to be in the recording. So our normal participants will catch up with us. So let's just move around the group and some of the reflections. I'd say, first of all, maybe if you're willing to share the problem that you realize might be prevented, that you've encountered, and then maybe some of the ideas. What did you get out of the information that you got back? And did you foresee any problems in it? Let's start with Lori. Lori's always glad to step up to the table and get the ball rolling.
I actually ran the prompt twice. The second time I ran it, I picked a slightly different problem that I was having, or something that I can see that can become a problem down the road. And that is because I am a QuickBooks Pro advisor and I specialize in training other people in QuickBooks and problem solving. I find myself getting nervous sometimes when I'm meeting with someone who is using QuickBooks Online because I've been doing desktop for so many years. The QBO platform is still newer to me. And I get a little nervous and a little concerned that maybe I don't know as much as I should, or that I should be practicing or studying before I meet with the client. Obviously, it's a coaching issue for myself. And the responses were to provide some hands on skill building, building a reference guide, which I've already started, adding a layer of confidence by doing a mock client session. It's a great idea. And then creating a prep checklist before I go to meet with clients who are using QBO until I become more comfortable with that environment. So it was super helpful. The thing I found really encouraging and something I wasn't expecting from ChatGPT was at the end, it said, "You've got this." It was refreshing and just like "Oh, you got it." Just a really nice attaboy. So I liked that was really a great way to end it. So that's my two
Cool.
cents.
Great. And did you pose any questions back at the time
I did
in
my
terms of any problems with any of its suggestions?
not in this particular one because it just was easy to flow through and really was spot on for me. Typically
Okay,
I do dive deeper, but in this one I did not.
great. So I see Daniel has joined us. Daniel, are you willing to share?
Sure. I had the issue that I deal with is oftentimes clients, when they're starting to innovate and wanting to do a new product, oftentimes they don't have a whole lot of budget up front, and then they will hire a cheap, inexperienced, or even a student designer to do some initial sketch work. And then they will realize soon that the designer doesn't have the capability of taking it beyond the sketch, right? It's just the sketch. So then they fall in love with a sketch and then they'll come to somebody like me with the experience to bring it to life. But it's starting with an inferior product, right? It's like it would have been better if they would have, before having somebody even do any work, there's upfront strategy work, there's consumer insight mining, there's a lot of work that should have taken place before the first ideas are even drawn. It was saying, what can you do to shift that so that they're coming to you for more upfront work? And so I said, that's an excellent question. And I gave it my website and I asked it to look at the website and then make some recommendations. So it came back with, for example, my tagline is imagine, design, and deliver. So I really should be working at the imagine stage, but they're always coming to me for the design deliver. It's too late. So they suggested adding a tagline like strategic design partner, uncover unmet consumer needs before starting, or something along those lines. I think I need to rework that. And then also I have some offerings, but maybe even adding another offering that is, it's actually start with a strategy session and offer up a strategy session for certain costs that they could talk before they even get into the product. Because oftentimes, every time I'm talking to somebody that they have a product idea, oftentimes the idea is already preconceived in their head and they're already in love with it, but they haven't even talked to any consumers to see if that's something that they really want. And some of the ideas are actually quite horrible if you imagine it from the consumer side. Or the other thing that will often happen is a company has a certain technology and they're just trying to figure out all kinds of different ways of getting that technology to the consumer, but it's still a push model instead of a pull model. Like the pull model would be here's a need and here's how my technology solves your need versus here's a technology, you'll probably like it, figure out a way to use it. Anyway, there's some good thought leads there.
Question for you. Do you ever take some of those ideas that they bring to you and run them through AI and say, please critique this and tell us how or why it should be changed? And maybe that would save you some work.
Oh, you mean the work on the, yeah, not so much. I think the key is AI can be used. I've seen how, I guess, in the new trend in consumer research is that they're creating virtual consumers based on actual data, right? If you have a lot of data, so you would have to input a lot of data about likes and preferences and whatnot, but then you can almost interview this AI virtual consumer as a way to get to some insights. I don't know, and I haven't tried that, and I don't know if it's really. Apple was talking about AI has limitations where AI does certain things very well, but it can't think rationally. It's not logic. It can come up with kind of patterns and solutions, but humans don't necessarily. We have an emotional limbic portion of our brain that AI doesn't have. So I'm not exactly sure how that works because there is an emotional component to decisions. Like really, there's more decisions made around emotions, especially in certain categories, than there is around logic. You can tell somebody logically this product is 5 times better, or it cleans 2 times as well, or is 4 times faster, or whatever. But if they don't emotionally associate or link or bond with the brand and the product itself, you're losing it. So I have some questions in my own mind about how well an AI consumer would be able to simulate that in a real human.
It might be fun to experiment.
Yes.
I will share a small story way back when I was looking about whether I wanted to continue to venture into this AI realm. I said, what are all the reasons that people might not want to use AI? And I got back some very, very good, in my way of thinking, responses. And it dealt very much with the emotional side. And
Mhm.
so I think that because if you think of what AI has been exposed to in its training mode of everything that it can see, it may surprise you with some of the emotional aspects of what it comes back with. So just give it a try. Play with it.
Yeah, I think another potential, and I don't want to monopolize all the time here, but another potential would be I did a project for a beauty company, and I just chose a city, and it was actually Houston area in Texas. And then I was just wanting to, they had a demographic, but a demographic doesn't tell you anything about who the consumers are. And it was interesting to look at Houston and then identify different neighborhoods, right? There's one neighborhood that's very suburban, very conservative, typical type there, but then you get into the city and then they have some eclectic neighborhoods that are, for example, a lot more diverse in who's living there and areas that are like trendy or hipster, those kinds of things. And I was able to identify some of that. And what's very cool is, and then by zip code, you can then go into Facebook and find out in each of these zip codes with this demographic, what are the most viewed and most liked posts, right? And you can learn a lot about people living there. So I think AI could be a very valuable tool for saying, okay, take a metropolitan area, identify clear neighborhoods with different characteristics, and then go and look at Facebook pages from each of those neighborhoods and identify unique and the most liked things, and it can be about music, it can be about fashion, or whatever you need to gain the insights into the consumers living there. So based on what we were doing manually before, we were able to make an idealized target consumer profile of 4 different women, and we would describe them as far as what they're into, what they're like, what's their life like, and then we would then try to design a product specifically for them. So I think it could be useful in that way.
We're just at the cutting edge of figuring out what we can do. Right now, our limitation is our own brain. So if we say we have access to all information that has ever been put out on the internet or has been written and is available to what AI has been trained on, which is huge amounts of data, right now, we're just putting our toes in the pool to figure out and think about. So the big thing is just keep opening our brains to possibilities. I keep coming up with something new and different, two,
Yeah,
three things a day that I
that's a good
can
point.
use it for. Yeah, just keep playing and experimenting. Shy, would you share with us what problem you were? Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate those insights. So, Shy's name is really Rochelle, but her nickname is Shy.
So for me, I don't have any problem like reoccurring, but what I put in something that I foresee maybe later on, something that since we're preparing for the Q3, the problem that I put in is what if there is a delay in the projects that we will be doing or like in the deadlines that we are putting in. So what it prompted me is how to react on those delayed and what would be the accountability that we can do. So one of that would be our weekly meetings are always included. And so it showed like that, and it created me as well templates and check-in formats that we can do over the course of time so that we can prevent having a delayed project. And also it gave me something new to me, framework, which is a Moscow priority, which is similar to what is urgent, important, nice to have and agreed. But since I'm not familiar with the Moscow priority, I also asked ChatGPT what does it mean and how it is different. So it detailed to me, yeah, the similarity of the must have should have implications or framework there.
And that is certainly a potential problem. And when you set out some aggressive timelines to get certain things done, life happens. People get sick, or things take longer than you think, or whatever. So being prepared for that circumstance sounds like a really good problem to anticipate. So thank you. I appreciate that. And the meetings you were mentioning, the WAM meetings, which is the weekly accountability meeting, that came out from one of our prior books. And it was the 12-week year, I think, that we got that from. That was helping us set up our quarterly goals.
Right.
Yeah, nice. See how all these things fit together. I didn't plan it that way. It's just sometimes they do. Sometimes things work. Okay, Rachel, did you have any problems that you asked it to solve for you?
Yes, my inbox. And basically, I was saying I'm missing emails because it just gets full of junk mail. And so it gave me some suggestions. And I was like, okay. It was like, what's it called? Create filters, flag all client emails, and review what's in your inbox and things like that. And block off 15 minutes weekly to do it. But then I asked, okay, how would you modify this if I'm already spending over an hour per week? I have 150 different filters and 65 labels. And they're like, oh,
So that's too complicated for me to solve.
yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. Did you go back and say try again?
yeah, basically. And then now it's suggesting what I should try for the next 4 weeks using these kind of things. But I was like, okay,
A few maybe workable suggestions. Hey,
yeah, but
I identify with you. This isn't a problem sharing session, but emails. Shy helps me with my emails. Lori helps me with, because my emails are for the company, basically.
yeah,
Yeah, they're company wide. Those are really can be painful. So for mine, I went back to a problem that back when we were doing bookkeeping, And so I ended up saying, got to go back past my ideas. It was basically the client doesn't turn in all the information I need to complete their books for the month. And so we used to do it a lot more manually. We used QuickBooks, but it was more manually. We had to get paper from the client. And it would never fail, but somebody'd sit down to do the work and then they didn't have everything that we needed, that we had told them we needed. And then it's, I call that the pick up put down problem. And it just wastes so much time. And because then you got to reach out and say, yeah, I still need this. And picking things up, putting things down several times just eats up a lot of time. So it came up with some really good suggestions and setting the clear expectations on both sides and so on. And then when I finally got done after, because one of the things was that you charge extra when people don't do what they're supposed to do. And so I came back and said, let's see. I said, I'm concerned about how to convey this information without alienating my clients. And so then it gave me some nice emails and things that wording that I could use to basically say, oh, this is for your own good kind of thing. I thought it was pretty helpful for circumstances like that. So, not a current problem, but one that we used to experience and I thought would be applicable. Let's go back, see how we're doing. We're a little over, but not too bad. So thank you everybody for sharing. It's fun having a smaller group to be able to share in a little bit more depth like this. You guys are all familiar with this page, so I'm not going to spend any more time. Reach out to me if you want to meet in person. The AI tips, this is a repeat from Tuesday. And again, keep asking questions. Am I forgetting anything? Do you have any suggestions? Can you suggest any products that might help me? And so on. I don't have to read all these things for you guys, but to me, this is a part of opening our mind and saying, please, you can help me. And I don't know about you, but lots of times if I have an issue, an answer will occur to me like 3 or 4 days later. And I'll go, oh, there's an idea. And then I'll have to go back and reintegrate it into what I was thinking about. This way, we can get those 3 to 4 day later ideas right away. That's worth thinking about. And looking ahead now, July 4th is a Friday, and that would be when we would normally have our get together. So we're backing it up a week instead of delaying it a week. So we're going to have another book thing on Friday, the 27th, next week. And it's going to be called Spin Selling: Situation, Problem, Implication, Need, and Payoff. I did listen to this book, and there were a lot of really good ideas, and they have gone out and more than 35,000 sales calls that they've sat in on. And they're talking about higher priced services. Okay, you can't sell them in the same way that you do lower priced things. And he goes through and talks about the differences, the major differences between two different types of selling and how you need to spend a whole lot more time. And I'm not giving the whole thing away, but a whole lot more time on their situation and what their problem is, as opposed to coming in with a solution. We have a tendency, we can see the solution. It's really easy to come in with the solution. So he really gets into a lot more detail about how you can do that. So hopefully we can get together next week. Maybe we'll get some of our Scaling New Heights people back if they're not totally exhausted, and we'll get them involved in this again as well. And then on Tuesday, the 1st, which will be following this, then we're going to do a prompt policy workshop, and we're going to be looking at drafting internal policies in just a few minutes instead of agonizing over them, because we've done that before. Let's say we wanted to put a PTO policy in place, and we would just, it would be a matter of 2 or 3 weeks of trading it back and forth and thinking about it, and so on and so forth. And hopefully, this type of thing we could submit to AI and interact with it and get it done very quickly, as opposed to the time that we used to take to do some of these kinds of things. And to me, part of it is the not having to weigh your brain down as much while you're trying to think your way through what are all the implications and back and forth when you put a specific policy in place. The reminder, have you refined your next 12-week plan? We did go back out and do that. It's worth looking at it a second time and refining it. and coordinating it with anybody else on your team. And then from our Tuesday session, analyze a real set of financials. Start with your own and see what you find out. You may love what you see, you may not love what you see, but reality is always better than not knowing. I think we're all set, and we made it 5 minutes before. And see, there's my little timer up here for 55 minutes. So we're good, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us here today, and I appreciate everybody participating.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.